Hey, it's Nick and Jay, and we have returned from Sears Pointless at Sonoma Raceway. Haven't been to Sonoma in over a year. It was great to be back. Incredible venue. And when you're showing up at a venue like Sonoma Raceway, you gotta really make an effort to make an entrance. And Central Cat Racing did exactly that. They had this huge, professional, double-stack transporter, giant pro race rig, and when you see something like that, there's all this anticipation when the door opens, what's gonna come out? And fortunately, we were not disappointed. Hella sweet, 4 Idiots Racing. They brought, this was so great, this was like my favorite thing all weekend, a wiper motor powered life-size Curious George riding a bicycle on the roof of their car. In addition to that, the guy shows me, well, I heard I have this printout from the web that says if you want to get noticed, put something giant on your roof. Well, they did. It was totally awesome. An interesting aside on these guys, originally they entered a VW Passat, then they said, no, Passat is not reliable enough. We're going to go a different way. Hella sweet, always great dogs at Sonoma. And a hella sweet, this super cheaty Boxster. It always shows up, it always gets a million penalty laps. Everybody on their name, how can you let that thing race? It is a travesty. It is a self-solving problem. Now, one thing we've learned in Lemons is that the cars that fly under the radar are often the cars that are the true contenders. That's certainly the case with the Tartan Brigade Datsun 280ZX. This is a very well prepared car, there's nothing wrong with it, but it doesn't have a Curious George on the roof, so it kind of goes around and around, and you might not notice it. But they're always in the hunt, in this case for Class B honors. These guys have been around for a long time. They're great people. They think that they might be having some life adjustments that means they're not going to be able to race Lemons for a while. If this was their swan song, thanks for coming. We love teams like this. Speaking of Class B, at the end of the day on Sunday, the battle went down to the wire. Tartan Brigade was out of it at that point, mechanical problems, but the Mark I Volkswagen GTI of Dirty Duck Racing and the Blue Oak Dropouts, this team has been around for a while. They have never contended for anything, and all of a sudden they're going neck and neck with veteran competitors, Dirty Duck, for the Class B win. It was down to the last couple of laps. Really exciting, actually, and at the end of the day, Blue Oak narrowly took the win over Dirty Duck. Hella sweet, the Cybertruck was back, and even hella sweeter, I gotta say, the mini Japanese mountain rescue fire truck was our Judge-mobile. That was the greatest vehicle of all time.
Please leave Godzilla alone. Thank you. こちらはサンフランシスコ自衛消防団です。市内でゴジラの出没が確認されています。
Team You Mad Bro was there. They've got a couple of cars. The one we like, of course, is the diesel 524 TD. This car showed up last year at Buttonwillow. At Buttonwillow, it was reliable, really slow. So this time they're like, well, how can we increase the speed but not affect the reliability? I know, General Motors Ecotech. Hella sweet and but terrible simultaneously, I think, was the Flea Market funded Trans Am. This was clearly some old roundy round dirt track car, and it was being driven by some old roundy round dirt track racers. And it took pretty much an entire day, all day Saturday, to get, to convince them, like, don't hit anything, don't chop anybody off, don't go after anybody with your tire iron. We had these guys in like 5 times. They got like 3 penalties in the first 30 minutes of the race, and it was all downhill. Amazingly, after about 8 hours of that, it was like a light bulb went off. Never saw them in the penalty box again. They were clean, they were quick, they had smiles on their face on Sunday. They figured it out. The car is still terrible, the guy's no longer terrible. Yeah, that Trans Am got the Bob Ross penalty, our classic penalty of having to paint happy trees on your car. A couple of teams got that. We also had some other great traditional classic penalties. We had the jigsaw penalty, pretty simple. Just gotta finish this jigsaw puzzle on the hood of your race car. Now, one thing that the jigsaw people didn't know was that while we were packing the jigsaw puzzle, the box came open and the pieces went everywhere. And, we were like, yeah, I think all the pieces are back in there. Well, these guys will find out. They might still be there. We also had the cling wrap penalty. Classic, you get saran wrap to the roof of your car. This was a team, Crusty Mustang Racing. It was a bunch of kids in a terrible Mustang. They had a great attitude. We really hope to see this team again in the future. And lastly, we had a new penalty, or at least one that we haven't done in a while, the pinstripe penalty. At some point along the line, a team gave us a whole box full of automotive pinstripe tape. If you get a black flag, we send you off to your paddock space with some of this tape, and you have to pinstripe your car, then bring it back for evaluation. It's a fun penalty. There's no way to really screw it up.
This is awful. This is accurate. This is creative. Look at this. This is horrible. Jeez. Oh, this is gonna like come off. The worst. Oh, it's not even symmetrical. Oh, I can't sleep tonight now because of this.
But terrible. The Yeah Baby MG BGT, which I was really excited about. I really wanted to see this car dominate. They spun their bearings real early in the race. Now, the guy is a professional MG mechanic. This poor bastard couldn't find bearing shells to save his life nowhere in the Bay Area. His only alternative was he was gonna Saturday drive down to LA, get bearing shells, drive back. He did the math, he realized, like, I can't even get here by the checker on Sunday. That was the end of the race. So sad. Hella sweet, the My Hero Academia themed Volvo of the Hembry family. My Hero Academia is this Japanese media property, and it has lots of great life lessons for teenagers and young people growing up. It's about advice and training and giving them a little spirit to move forward. They also have this whole anime side to it, and Zoe Hembry, who is a fantastic artist, she did all of the characters on the side of their Volvo, and as I learned about this, I just want to point out some of the aphorisms from MHA are incredibly fitting to Lemons. For example,
don't worry about what other people think. Hold your head up high and plunge forward.
The deeper the darkness, the more dazzling the light shines.
Sometimes I do feel like a failure. Like there's no hope for me.
Hey, are we missing something more from that last one?
No,
I guess it kind of works as is.
yeah.
For the second time, we saw Modelo Time Racing. We love seeing them. They have a great attitude. They're fun to hang out with. It's Modelo Time.
And I got a little aside here. So Eric Solera, who kind of runs that team, I had this really long conversation with him on the phone like 2 weeks ago, not very long ago. And I'm like, oh, yeah, thanks, man. That's so much help. I really appreciate it. I'm saying to him, he was really helpful. And then I see him at the race. I'm like, totally didn't recognize him. Like, whoa, sorry, dude. Totally blew him off. Sorry, Eric. I was busy.
Flog the Dead Horse was there with their Mustang. You might remember these guys from Buttonwillow 2020. Well, always good to see them again.
But terrible. Alfa Romeo Sindicate Excelente, which clearly should run Alfa Romeos, right? Well, they wised up years ago and said, okay, now we're just going to start running BMWs and paint them like Alfa Romeos because reliability. Well, their car hella died right on track, and they got rear-ended incredibly hard by, what? An Audi. So the BMW was totally caved into the back. Fortunately, the driver was fine. They had a great cage. They had a great fuel cell cage. The Audi, where all of the engine components are right at the front, it was like an experiment in a cyclotron where they accelerate things at each other. Both of the cars were destroyed. Lots of German particles and muons everywhere. Fortunately, nobody was hurt.
Now, as you guys know, Yokohama Tires is one of our esteemed sponsors, and we like to get footage and photos of Yokohama Tire stuff while at Lemons races, just to keep them happy. So, I was set up to film a car entering the track with the Yokohama Tires banner in the background, so I was kind of thinking about tires. Whatever the next car that shows up, I'm going to film that one. It's going to be great. Well, the first car that rolled up, and because I was already thinking about tires, I looked down. They're running totally illegal, cheaty Hoosier slicks, so I immediately busted them.
And let me just say, when we catch somebody running illegal slicks, which happens not often, but more often than it should, we really do one of two things. One, we kick them the hell out. I personally like to do that because that's just lame. Or we make them take the tires off, carry them up to the grandstands, and let the tires see how real DOT 180 or higher treadwear tires perform in an endurance race.
Our friends Rotary Rooter, they were back. They were doing what they do. Hella sweet, Team Sabe. These guys raced with us before, and for some reason we told them that they couldn't race with the stock convertible top on their Saab 9.3. Maybe because it was a 2,000-pound complicated erector set, framework, spears that are gonna go through the driver's head during a wreck. That might have been the reason, I don't remember. Anyway, they solved the problem with this totally sweet custom fastback. Did the car run? Hey, it's a Saab.
Our buddy Chuck Donnelly and Team M45, they crashed their kind of cheaty Subaru, as kind of cheaty Subarus do, but don't worry, they had a backup car and it was even more technologically sophisticated.
May I see the best you have in a car?
Certainly. Nothing tops the exciting all-around performance of the Avanti.
Oh, yes. Sunday morning. Studebaker made it. Avante.
Hella sweet, our friends at Ranger Road. Once again, we drafted them to help with penalties, and they did a great job.
One, over, grab that wheel. Hustle, pick it up, get the banana, put it in your suit.
Hella sweet and but terrible was the red Camaro of Team Hopeless Camaro, the most appropriate team name of all time. But I'm hearing it's actually not called Team Hopeless Camaro. That's just what we called them. All right, I stand corrected. So this was a car that ran at CMP, and by ran, I mean it didn't actually run. It showed up, and I think they never were able to get laps out of this thing because like all third generation F bodies, the fuel system doesn't work, the engine doesn't work, the cooling doesn't work, the cage is too low. It's just everything wrong with this car. It's leaking, it's overheating, the transmission is crapping out. It's an F body. Now, there are a couple of ways to fix that. They could have gone on eBay Motors, new sponsor eBay Motors. They could have gone on eBay Motors. They could have got, fuel filter parts that worked. They could have got junk transmissions that actually would shift. They could have ordered a whole fitting legal roll cage. Did they? They did not. They didn't do anything. They just showed up. In any case, through all these tribulations, they managed to get out at the very end of the day Saturday. I mean, we're almost closing the track. The checker was about to come out. They got out of the track. They made a complete almost lap and then crapped out. They managed to get 4 laps, I think, all day Sunday. Do a lap, car craps out, do another lap, car craps out. But they made it to the checkered flag, and they did not give up. And I think they had a pretty good time.
All right, on to the awards. The special award was the No Good Deed Goes Unpunished award. That went to Corey Dickman, his 2-car effort, Oldsmobile Omega, Pontiac Solstice, Tiger Stripes, totally sweet. Well, one of their team members just before the race was down in Mexico building low-cost housing. Upon returning to this country, he got a rapid COVID test, but before getting the results, he went on ahead to Sonoma. Well, upon arriving and hanging out, he got the results, and of course they were positive. Well, we take that sort of thing very seriously. We had their 2-car team leave. We had their garage next door neighbors who had nothing to do with it. We had them leave, and we had one of our own judges leave. Now, this guy, he knew that these rapid tests, they generate more false positives than false negatives, as they should, and he knew there was a whole CDC procedure to find out if your positive COVID test was in fact false. It's like a million steps. I don't know what these guys had to do, but they went through the CDC checklist, checked off every box, got additional tests, whatever else they needed to do. They showed us that they had gone through that procedure. It was a false positive test, at which point we let them return. They got half of the racing they expected to, and the poor guy was just trying to build low-cost housing. So, no good deed goes unpunished.
All right, the I Got Screwed trophy How can you get more screwed than that last bunch of guys? Well, you're the guys right next to them. Perfectly innocent. Their first Lemons race, they were scrambling to finish their Volkswagen, and all of a sudden, I gotta walk over and say, dudes, not only do you have to get kicked out of the race, but you might have COVID. That's what I call getting screwed. We called them up when it turned out that positive was a false positive, and we were able to confirm that the way you're supposed to. We called them back up, invited them back. They came back, they finished the race. Just for the record, because COVID, we are actually going to roll everybody's fees from that little incident over to the next race of their choice. But what are you going to do?
Heroic fix. First, gotta give an honorable mention to Team Voodoo. You know, I was watching this from a safe distance, and I really don't know what was going on over there, but they had a totally disassembled Honda Civic, engine parts, dude's t-shirt was ripped into a million pieces, but anyway, I didn't find out what was happening because it was too scary. The real heroic fix went to the father and teenage son team Ran Out of Talent Racing. We've seen these guys before. Last year, it was a father and son duo. The two guys actually ran the full 24-hour race at HPR, which just the two of them. Since then, the second son has turned 16, so now it's a father and two sons. And what better way to teach youths the value of hard work and perseverance than to try to run a Geo Metro in an endurance race?
Well, it's definitely teaching them something, because right out of the gate, they cracked their block. Then they swapped a bunch of parts over to their spare block, immediately ran that out of oil, and spun their bearings. Then they took the good bearings out of the cracked block motor and put them in the spun bearing motor, which worked great until son number 2 power shifted from fourth directly into first and blew that motor up. Okay, technically he didn't blow the whole motor up, he just sheared all the bolts off the flywheel. They got on the phone to AutoZone, and you know what? For a Suzuki Motor Geo Metro, you can get flywheel parts. So they ran into town, they got those, they put it all back together, car went back out. So there you go. What kind of lessons have these kids learned? Well, they've learned perseverance, engineering, stick-to-itiveness, personal responsibility, problem solving, but most importantly, don't listen to dad.
Judge's choice went to Don Gier. These guys were great. They were from San Jose, California. They had the Tesla. They just had the whole thing going. Well, they found a somewhat melted Volkswagen Passat diesel that had sort of survived the Santa Cruz wildfires last year. They didn't have the fancy transporter. They didn't have the RV. They didn't have tents. They didn't have tables. They didn't have chairs. We don't know whether they had food or water. All of their repairs were done, successfully I might add, on the ground with hand tools like cavemen pounding things into the asphalt. Also, the melty part of their car was on the exhaust side. Initially we thought like, oh dude, the TDI's EGTs are melting the back of your car off. Everybody's reporting, corner workers are saying that diesel is on fire. Like, no, don't worry, it used to be on fire. It was on fire like 6 months ago. It's not on fire now. We guarantee it.
I guarantee it.
Organizer's choice. Chris Overzet has been saying he's bringing a Jeepiata, if you will. He's been saying this for years. He finally did it. He got a Miata a long time ago, and Chris being Chris, he said, that's too easy. Like, I don't want to just have a Miata. I could win and have a successful race. I don't want that. So he decided, I gotta back up a minute. Chris Overzet has run a million races. He's the guy who got the very first Lemons tattoo the week before we changed our logo to a different logo from the one that he tattooed on his arm. Anyway, Chris has run a whole bunch of cars. He owns a business that prepares off-road racers, and they do really good high-end work. He finally decided, here's what I'm doing with this Miata. I'm gonna jack it up like, I don't know, 15 inches. I'm going to put giant mud and snow tires on it. I'm going to put big plastic fender guards on it. And I am going to make a Miata that identifies as a Jeep. It's going to be awesome. So we talked about this. Car never showed up. Here it was. And it looked awesome. Weirdly, I don't know what it is about making it a foot or two higher and putting on giant wheels. That's really all he did. It was incredibly slow. Chris is a good driver. He couldn't get that thing to get out of its own way. And in fact, we even heard people in the paddock like, I don't understand why that car is so slow. But it was, and it looked super awesome. And being a Miata, it just was no heartburn. I love this car. I want to own this car.
Index of effluency, the grand prize, went to McDad's A-Fart Racing and the Lancia Scorpion. Suddenly, this car has been around forever. When it made its debut at Buttonwillow years and years ago, we were blown away. Like, oh god, there's some team of masochists that are actually going to try to run a Lancia Scorpion. And it did not disappoint. It's caused this poor team endless problems for the years that it's been around, but it looks awesome, and just the concept. Look, let's face it, Lemons is a challenge. You're setting up artificial hurdles for yourself to cross. Why not set a super high one like a 70s Lancia? At some point along the road, this team added a Toyota Supra because, I don't know, they actually want to have some track time. But they've kept this Lancia around, and for this race, they're finally saying, like, okay, I think this might be the last run for the Lancia. And the Lancia was in fine form. It ran poorly, it got towed in. At one point, it would start and just shoot fire out of the intake, and they couldn't figure out why. They never gave up, even though they knew that they were retiring this car. They kept trying to fix it to get back out on track, and they would for stretches at a time. I think it may have even taken the checkered flag if the planets aligned with the timing of when the car was running and when the race was over. Whatever. They had the right attitude. They never gave up. The car looks awesome. If this is the last time that we're seeing it, we are sad. They are happy, but they are also well deserving of the IOE.
Oh, I don't know. That seemed like a really long video. I think it was too long.
Well, probably it was, but it's over now. So here's Lemons in a nutshell.
Yes, okay, Class C. Class C, 0 left. Oh, you can't have my mask. I need that for the Corona.
Man, this car runs great.
It's running on Navy 4. Navy 4.
Recipe. Damn you! God damn you!